All right. Good morning and welcome. My name is Chris Shelton.
And I'm Parisa Shelton.
And here we are again on another Wednesday talking about my upcoming new book on Chris Shelton's Easy Guide, How to Heal Neck and Back Pain Yourself. Of all the diseases I see in clinical practice, neck and back pain are number one.
Is that the reason why you started with this book?
As opposed to...
First?
Yeah, that's the reason why originally when I started to write this book over 10 years ago, the book was supposed to be broken down into 3 parts. And the first part was common conditions, how to heal that yourself, like the common cold or flu, migraines, constipation, diarrhea, all the fun stuff. The second part of the book was supposed to be about back and neck pain. Third part of the book was more complicated conditions like trigeminal facial neuralgia, which is considered the suicide disease, Meniere's disease, those types of conditions, and cancer.
Unusual.
Yeah. So I decided I didn't want an encyclopedia. I didn't want a clinical textbook. I want
It was getting way too long.
It would have been a monstrous book. So we broke it up into 3 books, and the first part of the 3 books was writing about the low back, mid back, and the cervical spine, the neck.
And actually, good thing you brought that up, because today we're going to dive in deeper into low back and related conditions. So what is the number one culprit for low back pain?
Number one culprit is the psoas muscle, and you spell that P-S-O-A-S.
Silent P?
Silent P, just like P in Parisa?
That doesn't happen very often here.
Okay.
But okay.
Anyways, it's the psoas muscle is a deep muscle inside the body. It's about the size of your fist. It attaches to the inner part of your femur here, comes up, wraps around, attaches to the lower lumbar all the way up to your thoracic spine. This muscle is major. So a lot of people just think that the spine acts or holds itself in place independently, but it's not. The psoas muscle is what holds it in place. Now there's other muscles obviously that play a role in it as well too. The other aspect of the psoas muscle is that the front part of the psoas connects to the diaphragm, and also we have smaller aspects of the psoas that connect to the internal organs or help to support and hold the internal organs in place. So when this muscle is tight, when whatever side is tighter, because both sides obviously will be tight, whatever side is tighter, what will happen is it will cause the vertebra then to compress on the disc. And then when the discs are compressed, the nerves that come out of the spinal canal, that's what creates the nerve pain and the overall pain.
The radiating back pain.
Yeah.
Is that why too, when people who have back pain, they go like, they're hunched forward, they're like this?
Yeah, because
right?
this muscle is actually pulling them forward. And this muscle is a hard muscle to get to. And I know that Pilates and yoga says that they have stretches that benefits the psoas, but it only gets the superficial part of the psoas. And in my guide that I have, well, in the book, but also if you go to our website
in the description below, there's a link, and you can get your guidebook that takes you through a very specific and special psoas stretch, P-S-O-A-S.
Yeah, so we're getting on that psoas, but the root cause of the psoas getting tight, unless you got into a car accident or fell off a ladder or something like that, the root cause of it is stress and the stress-related conditions.
What about sitting too much?
Sitting too much will further aggravate it, but the root of it is actually stress. You go back.
Stress.
Yeah, I mean kidney. So being shock or PTSD could also cause this muscle to contract as well too. But the reality is that when you're under stress, you have a lot of anger, frustration. That also will cause this muscle to tighten as well too.
Okay, so what would you say to someone who just has stress in their life? Like they feel like it's all in the external environment, the boss, the kids, the spouse, like all the things compiling. They feel super stressed constantly and their low back is hurting. What would be your advice to someone like that?
So that's where Qigong comes in, because what Qigong does is it gives you tools to deal with stress and also individual negative emotions that attack different organs of the body. So what I love about Qigong is that it has a yin aspect, which is the mindfulness part, and then it has a yang aspect, which is the active part. In this case here, so if you have a lot of anger, frustration, irritation, then doing the liver cleansing exercise, for example, and focusing on the liver on the right side of the body, and imagining a green cloud filling in the right side there. And then focusing on what is making you angry or irritated, or maybe it's a passive end. Maybe you have a resentment towards a father figure, mother, whatever. You got abandonment stuff going on, or a spouse, ex-spouse, or partner.
The list goes on.
Yeah, whatever it is. So what you do is you imagine that green cloud filling up into the liver as you inhale, And then as you exhale, imagine that floating away like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body and down deep into the ground. And believe it or not, the connection with the emotion, especially if there's past stuff that you still are harboring, the color and the organ itself, plus the movement, this is how we create a release. And it actually is an active or a yang tool in order to help to deal with the emotions of anger and resentment. But the other organs too, like, we could have grief of the lungs, we could have fear affecting the kidneys. Because also when we talk about lower lumbar, the kidneys control the low back. It also controls the spine, controls the bones, the skeletal structure. It controls what is referred to as the extraordinary organs, which is like your marrow, your brain marrow, your uterus, your testes, those types of things.
That's cool, because you're an extraordinary human.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question, which is, because I hear this too, is that, so someone who doesn't feel stress, or they say, okay, my life is good, I don't have stress, but they go to, let's say, bend down and pick up something that's, 3, 4, 5, 6 pounds or whatever, and they bend down, and then they're like, they throw out their back, or their low back, because it's usually right here in the low back. What do you say to that?
So again, one of the misconceptions is that, like, for people that had trauma or had an abusive parent or something like that, where there's this resentment, or maybe even a parent passed away and you have resentment towards the parent passing away for leaving you, right?
Or unresolved, like there was an argument and then they died and you
didn't get to, So if that stuff was never fully resolved, you'll get to a place eventually where, like, okay, well, it's out of mind, out of sight, out of mind. And now let's say you're living this harmonious life and your life feels good and stuff like that. And I still ask people to do an inventory. Do an inventory of what's going on in your life, because I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to pinpoint certain things that maybe you're still harboring, and you'll think, I thought I dealt with that years ago. But the reality is it dissipates in layers, because the back just won't go out by itself. It's seriously, unless you got kicked in the back, you're doing martial arts, someone kicked you in the back, or
that happened to you.
That happened to me. Like I said, you got into a car accident, and immediately from the car accident, you had a back injury, not a week later. A week later, if the back pain shows up, it means that it's the emotional component associated with the car accident. So you do an inventory as to what's going on, or you're playing football and somebody, spears you or something like that, and you end up with a severe neck injury or whatnot. Those are different. Those are definitely physical things that are, like I said, falling off a ladder or whatever. Those are physical things that then obviously can damage the spine.
Right.
But if all of a sudden you're fine, and then you go to pick up a shoe and now you're laying on the floor because you threw out your back, do an inventory of what's going on in your life, and I'm pretty sure you could pinpoint it. And one thing else I have to emphasize too is everybody's cup is different, meaning the amount of stress one person could handle is different than somebody else. So if you think, well, so-and-so's had a much more stressful life than me, then
That's
why
like
would
me and you, like you can handle stress so much better.
Yeah, because I was conditioned that way because of my childhood, so it's either, drown or swim,
Sink or swim?
Yeah, I chose to swim. So.
I'm glad you did. So in other words, you're saying that low back pain and back pain in general, if it just suddenly pops up, there wasn't like a physical trauma or injury, then it's related back to an emotional issue, a stress, a strife. And so do an inventory.
Okay. One more thing on that. Because the other thing too is that if it does suddenly go out, the other thing too is I do suggest that you do see your primary healthcare practitioner.
Oh, yes.
And the reason why, and have an x-ray or an MRI, and the reason why is that sometimes we could have a tumor or cancer on the spine itself.
Oh, shit. So
and we want to rule that out. Majority of the time, that's not the case, but you want to rule that out to make sure that there's nothing going on there, and just think that, oh, my back just hurts, and then next thing you know, you have whole body's full of cancer. Right?
Okay. Thank you for that. Yes, see your primary care provider. But going back to the back pain, just suddenly appearing, relating to stress and strife. If that's the case, then how come a physical thing like the psoas stretch works?
Because what the psoas stretch does is it forces the muscle to elongate and relax. And when it elongates and relax, because when the psoas muscle is under stress or there is this anger, resentment, well, what does that put you in? It puts you in fight mode. You're in fight mode. And then, so the muscle thinks that it needs to protect you. So it tightens up to pull you forward to protect these delicate yin organs in the front.
Okay.
So when you do the psoas stretch or the gallbladder 27-28 release, what it does is it forces the muscle to relax, which then alleviates pressure off the spine. Then guess what? Will alleviate pressure off the disc or alleviate pressure off the nerves that are coming out of the spinal canal.
But if the person doesn't actually deal with the stress and the emotional strain, then the back pain will come back?
The back pain will come back. And we hear this all the time. We get phone calls or emails from people on YouTube or whatever saying, what's interesting is that, I haven't really done anything physical to injure my back, and all of a sudden my back went out, then it got better, and then all of a sudden 2 months later it went out again. So once again, that inventory is so good. And I'm just going to say this, if you want to do an actual inventory, one of my favorite techniques that I give to a lot of my clients is the 4th step from the 12th step program.
Yeah.
And
can you just jump to the 4th step, or do you have to do 1 through 3 first?
I think that everybody should do the 12 steps. The first step is the only step that where you're admitting that you've
the addiction part.
Yeah, that you are helpless because of your addiction to alcohol or drugs.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, and what's funny is I hear some people say there's some spiritual teachers out there that I heard say, oh well, you're not powerless. That first step. I'm segueing here real quick because this really irritates me. I need to do more of the liver. Irritates me when I hear people on the outside that maybe never had an addictive personality or gone through the struggles of addiction, and they say, oh well, that first step of saying that you're powerless, what you're saying is that you're manifesting that in your cells that you're powerless. And no, the reality is what you're saying is that I've gotten to a place in my life to where my life has become so uncontrollable that the alcohol or whatever is controlling me that I am powerless at this stage. Doesn't mean that you stay powerless the rest of your life. It's at this stage that you arrive at the doorsteps that says, God, I need help. I need help. That's what that first step is.
I see.
So I think that everybody should do a 12-step program and work with a sponsor, work with somebody else that they trust, because it's not only addiction to drugs and alcohol or pharmaceuticals, it's also the addiction to stinking thinking, or it's also the addiction to food. There's so many types of addictions.
Yeah, they have the AA. A client of ours was doing a 12-step program for relationships. She was addicted to toxic relationships.
Yeah. So I think everybody should do it. But if you just go into step 4, what it does is it gives you go online, Google it, let's say step 4 inventory list. And what it'll do is you'll see, you print it up and it'll be a chart of the 3 major things that really is the root.
That you're holding on to.
And is the root of why we have these addictions to begin with anyways. And the first one is an inventory of your resentments. So you fill that thing out, because the first part is it's not just the person, it could be an institution, it could be,
a circumstance or whatever.
So you write out what that is, then you write out, well, how did it affect you, right? Who's involved, what's involved, and how did it affect you? And then the most important thing also too is like, well, what was my role in it?
Oh, what was my role in it?
That's the hard pill to swallow. The other part too that 4-step has is what is the inventory of your fears. What are your fears? And then the third part of it, and it doesn't always apply to everybody, but sexual misconducts. But anyways, at least doing the resentment part can help you see if you're brutally honest with yourself. Where I see the worst diseases in clinical practice, inflammatory diseases, is when somebody said, oh, well, I forgave them years ago, but yet they still have all this inflammation. They have this digestive issues, Crohn's disease or whatever coming up. I ask you to do an inventory.
So somehow it's still living in the subconscious and they have to reveal it to be healed.
Yep.
Wow,
so,
that's some deep stuff for the low back.
Low back. Yeah, we keep on going deeper. So
we're going to.
Yeah, so join us again next Wednesday for this YouTube Live. And, the whole purpose here is to educate people of how the emotions affect the body. And some people have heard of this term before, but we call it the pain body, how the pain body actually shows up. and how it shows up as chronic pain or disease, and in this case, back pain and neck pain.
Wow. And so as we wrap it up, I was just thinking that even though the back pain sucks, especially low back pain is the worst, it's actually could be a blessing or an opportunity in order for you to dive deeper and learn more about yourself. Like, oh, hey, I thought I dealt with that, but actually this situation in the past, this resentment is still living somewhere inside my body. So now I become aware of it, and now there's things I can do in order to acknowledge it, release it, let go,
and
live
heal
your best life.
Yeah, and heal. So,
Heal.
yep. All right. So once again, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
If
we
you have any
love you.
questions, please
Reach out.
Reach out.
Yep. Subscribe to the channel. Put your comments in.
and share.
And
Share
share.
the channel.
Share. Yeah.
All right,
Get
till
your
next-
guide if you haven't.
Until next time.
We will
See you later. Bye.